Thank you all for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know there's going to be more people join, but they can just join us as they're able. So my name is Kellen Davis. I work here at the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I have the privilege of running the Leadership Greater Little Rock program. We're going to talk about that pretty in depth today. It says 11:30 to 12:30, but I don't anticipate it taking that long. So I will probably be giving you some time back this afternoon, but we will go ahead and get started. So I'm just going to assume everyone on the call does not know anything about the leadership program, and so I'm just going to give a full overview, and then I'll turn it over to one of our alumni to give a little testimonial, and then we will take some questions, and then we'll get out of here. So first of all, the main misunderstanding that people have about the leadership program is that it is a program that teaches managerial skills or is going to teach you how to lead a team within your organization or something of that nature. So it's not that. So if you came into here with that notion, I'll dispel that right off the bat. It is a community-focused leadership program. So most communities around the country have a similar program. There are other ones across the state of Arkansas, but ours is the one for the Little Rock region, Pulaski County specifically. So the idea of the program, it's a 9-month program designed to enhance and connect leaders from across industries, whether it's businesses or nonprofits, government, across those industry sectors. So it's been around for 41 years now. Throughout the program, we meet at different Central Arkansas locations. So I'll go over the various sessions that you get to go through, but most of them follow a similar setup where you hear from expert speakers or panelists. You do different tours, and then there's going to be a couple of group presentations that you do with different subgroups of your cohort. And then lastly, down here at the bottom, this is extremely important. We have basically two rules of cohort members that are non-negotiable. So when you apply for the program, when you go on there, you'll see that you have to commit to all of the dates that are going to be utilized throughout the cohort. So you're going to have 10 different sessions. So each session represents 8 hours, and you're not allowed to miss any more than 16 hours over the entire course of the program. So if you miss two whole sessions of the 10, then that would put you at that 16-hour mark. And anything over that, you would be removed from the program. And I'm going to probably harp on that multiple times throughout the presentation today. Because every year we have a situation where, people get up to that line and, they maybe didn't take the warning seriously. And we have had to remove people multiple times throughout our 41-year history for going over that. It's a very strict attendance rule. And that's inclusive of being late, of leaving early. It's not just missing an entire session. Any portion of a session that you miss is counted against you in that 16-hour total. And then the second rule that I mentioned, the 2-day retreat that is going to happen in November this year. It fluctuates between October and November on any given year, but the 2-day retreat is mandatory for participation in the class. So when you commit to those dates, you have to commit to the 2-day retreat and you have to attend it in full. To participate in the class. If you are not able to do the retreat, then you would have to apply again in a different year. But we'll go over all that. So the history of the program, like I said, we've been around for 41 years. It was started in 1985. So in 1985, the chamber had a new president and CEO by the name of Paul Harville, and he had seen these programs in other chambers, and so he got together with some other community leaders. Jim Daly, if any of you know, he went on to be the mayor of Little Rock for many years, and he also has worked in commercial real estate. And then Jimmy Moses, who was one of the architects of the River Market in downtown Little Rock. He was also in commercial real estate. Those three individuals went around the country benchmarking other programs, looking at what other chambers do and other leadership organizations and how to structure their programs. And so they came back and they started the first iteration of what would later become Leadership Greater Little Rock in 1985. It was that may be on the next slide, but it was originally the Greater Little Rock Leadership Institute. Yeah, there you go. Over time, it morphed and became the Leadership Greater Little Rock program. So approximately 50 participants are selected each year. So over the last 41 years, that equates to over 1,900 community leaders from around Central Arkansas that have graduated from the program. And we have a pretty robust alumni association where all those individuals can stay in touch and meet up on a regular basis that I'll talk about as well later on. So in that 1,900 community leaders, we have had multiple mayors of Little Rock. Jim Daly, like I said, helped found the program. Sharon Priest went through the program, who is also the Arkansas Secretary of State reference. Mark Stodola, the current Mayor Frank Scott Jr., just a litany of people that have served the city of Little Rock and then other surrounding cities as well. Like I said, Arkansas Secretary of State, state legislators. I love to tell the story in class 38, which is 3 years ago. We had an individual who had worked his entire career in IT, and had never had really any political aspirations. And then after going through the program, it inspired him to run for office, and he is now a state legislator. He was first a justice of the peace for Pulaski County and is now a state legislator elect. And then we've Adjutant General of the Arkansas National Guard, various university presidents, including the ASU system. But that person has now moved on, but he was president of the ASU system for many years, federal judge, and then CEOs of major public, private, and nonprofit organizations. The new executive director of the airport is a graduate of the program. The executive director of the Little Rock Port Authority is a graduate. The Pulaski County Sheriff is a graduate, and many others, successful entrepreneurs, one of which you'll hear from later on today, named Billy Rodenbeck, who runs Pulaski County Title. He's one of our great graduates of our program, and many, many more, like I said. So we love our alumni. I'm very proud of them. So the purpose of the program are these four things: identify and motivate individuals with leadership potential, acquaint them with community needs, challenges, and opportunities that are facing the region, offer a forum of exchange of methods for dealing with those community issues, and challenge those potential leaders to become involved with local issues and the decision-making process. So we want to do these things. We want to identify and motivate these individuals who are maybe not yet like CEOs. But I mean, we certainly have those that to go through the program, but also those who are, maybe middle management level, that have that leadership potential that could grow into the future leaders of our community. We want them to be fully aware of all of the challenges and opportunities that our community faces and how we can, what role they can play in making Little Rock a better place to live and to work. So that's the primary thrust of the program, and that's what we seek out to do every day. So the governance, the Little Rock Regional Chamber, like I said, they started the program in 1985. So it's an initiative of the Little Rock Chamber, and it's staffed by the Little Rock Chamber. I'm the executive director of the program, and my responsibility is to run the day-to-day operations of both the leadership program and the Alumni Association, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But the program and the Alumni Association are both governed by an advisory board that's made up of program alumni. So it's about a 25-person board. That meets quarterly to review program feedback and operations, oversee the operations of the Alumni Association committees that I'll talk about, and then provide overall strategic direction for both the program and the Alumni Association. All right, so enough of the broad overview of the program. Here is a breakdown of the curriculum that you would see if you were to go through the class. So each class is announced at the end of September each year. Typically it has been done at the Clinton Center. It's been done elsewhere as well, but we do it's about a 300-person event where you're announced to your community, to your employers, to your cohort. You meet your cohort for the first time, and you're publicly announced as members of the class. And the upcoming class is class XLII, and that's class 42. So if you were to apply and be accepted this year, that would be your class number, and you would be announced in September of this year. The leadership challenge. So this is the first session that each group goes through. It's the XLII Leadership Challenge at the 4-H Center that's out in West Little Rock. out Ferndale direction. So the idea behind this is for you to one, meet your cohort in a more relaxed setting, go through different team building exercises. You do either a ropes course or a rock climbing session as well in the afternoon, and you just get to, in a very relaxed setting, get to know one another and break down, any barriers that would be there if you were to just meet in a very tight professional setting. It just helps the cohort bond a little bit. And then they immediately following go into a retreat. So that's the next gathering of the group. So this is always done at Mountain Harbor, out past Hot Springs on Lake Washita. So at this session, you go through a 2 day. This is the mandatory event that I was talking about earlier that you must attend to participate. You go through the process communication model personality assessment, and you get to hear from an expert master trainer that talks. You take a personality exam, and then he walks you through what your results mean and how you relate to others. It's a very thorough. It's much more thorough than if you've ever taken like the "What animal are you" personality assessment or anything of that nature. This one is much more in depth, and you get a full printout of your personality, what makes you tick, what makes others tick, and how you could interact effectively with others, whether they're within your own organization or across industries. And then you also get to do a big relaxed dinner with alumni and all that kind of good stuff. So it's a very, very fun event. And then you get into the actual sessions. I talked about there's 10 of them. So the first of which is the history session. So you're gonna meet or you're gonna hear from different speakers that talk about different aspects of the history of both Little Rock, Central Arkansas, and the state as a whole to understand how the community has developed over time. So you're going to look at like a lot of the growth of Little Rock through neighborhoods, or you're going to hear, how natural disasters have shaped the history of the state, the history of Little Rock, so the Central High debacle in 1957, and then each class. We typically have them go through a tour of the Central High grounds where they're going to walk through the footsteps of the African American children that were integrated into the Little Rock Central High in 1957 and walk their footsteps as they were, mistreated and kicked out of the school, when they were supposed to be integrating that school. So you get to hear a full and comprehensive history of that. So it's an awesome session. It's probably one of my favorites. I would say it is my favorite. So I always get excited for that one each year. And then you do a community session. So each cohort, you have two different group projects that you're going to do. So the first of which is your community project or neighborhood project. So each group, the class is split into 5 or 6 groups, and you're assigned a neighborhood in Pulaski County to study, to craft a presentation for. So you're going to look at what is the history of this neighborhood, how did it develop, what are the demographics, what are the major issues that are facing the community, what are their major strengths, what are their opportunities, and then you're going to make recommendations that the neighborhood should follow to become better. Whether it's a struggling neighborhood or a very well established neighborhood, you're going to make recommendations in whatever way is applicable to that neighborhood. So it's a great way to one meet a subset of your cohort and get to talk to them and interact with them on a deep level. People always so the community session is in December, as you'll see later when I show the session calendar. But everyone always underestimates the amount of time that this session takes to prep for. So my recommendation early on to all of you before you apply or before you're even in the group is if you are selected for this year's class, start on the community project immediately after you're accepted. Get a head start on that so that you do not run into the holiday season and struggle with getting that complete. So next, as we enter the spring, you're gonna go do an economic development session. So this one is very chamber heavy. Also, the airport, the Little Rock Port that I mentioned earlier. You're going to go through different panel discussions and presentations from key stakeholders. So often groups hear from like major economic development like broad scale macro look at how economic development projects come to fruition. So how do we, as the chamber, as a community, how do we recruit major manufacturers, primary employers from across the country to come to Little Rock and locate and create hundreds of jobs at a time? How do those processes work? How do the utilities interact with that? So how does Entergy work with us? How does Summit Utilities? How do Little Rock Water Reclamation, Central Arkansas Water, all of these organizations, how do we all coordinate and work together to recruit these organizations? And then also, how do we support the businesses that are already here? So how do we do that business retention and expansion work? How do we work with small businesses to foster entrepreneurial development? There's organizations like the Venture Center, the Arkansas Small Business Technology Development Center, all these entities that you get to hear from. And then you get to do tours of the Little Rock Port, Little Rock Airport, all of these different very cool things. We've done tours of Dassault Falcon Jet, of Lexicon, these major manufacturers that are out at the port or out at the airport. So that's always a really cool session. It's very jam-packed with information and activities. So next is government and politics. So this one, you're going to get immersed in all aspects of local, state government, federal government. You're going to hear from lobbyists. You're going to hear from just various stakeholders throughout the government session, where you're going to get a full and complete understanding of how these organizations work together. How do legislators operate across the aisle? How are these decisions made and implemented at the local and the state and federal levels? How do the federal representatives that represent Arkansas and Washington, how do they provide resources for the local communities? All of those things. The education session, very similarly to the government session, you're going to hear from various presenters and panelists that are going to walk you through all of the different aspects of the educational system, whether that's at the local level, whether that's the state education funding, how all of that works, whether that's federal education dollars that come down through it as well. You're going to hear from like school choice representatives about the various different types of local school districts. So you're going to hear about public schools, private schools, charter schools, all of these different options. You get to hear about the LEARNS Act and how it's affecting all these different types of institutions. And then we get to talk about higher ed. We often have a panel of chancellors from UA Little Rock and UAPTC, Philander Smith, all of these area institutions. And so you get a full and complete picture of the education system in Central Arkansas. And then this is one of everyone's favorite days, the military session. So you get to go to both the Little Rock Air Force Base and Camp Robinson. You get to, often weather permitting, you get to fly in Black Hawk helicopters. So this one obviously is a lot of people's favorite session, but it's very jam-packed with information about the economic impact of these institutions and these bases, and you just get to get a full understanding of how the Arkansas National Guard works, how the Air National Guard works, all these things. Healthcare, this one is always done at UAMS, so you get to hear about the region's healthcare system, what great research and impactful things are done at UAMS and across the region, how we lead the country in a lot of ways in our healthcare endeavors. You get to hear about the good and the bad of the healthcare system, reimbursement rates, all of these things, the challenges and opportunities facing that industry. So that one's always great as well. Criminal justice. So each class gets to go tour the Pulaski County Jail, and then you get to work through some case studies on different criminal justice topics, different case patterns. You kind of get to play lawyer for a day, so that's kind of fun. And then each class also gets to hear from a large panel of prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, and all these things. You get to hear a presentation from Little Rock Drug Court, and how they, help curb recidivism by diverting people that are convicted of low level drug offenses to different diversion classes as opposed to jail. It's really cool work that they get to do. So that one's awesome. And then the last session of the year is a quality of life session. So this is the second group project one. This one's much less involved. So everyone is always happy to do this one as opposed to the last one. fundamentally for this one, you get assigned a nonprofit. You're broken into groups again. You do a service project on this nonprofit, and then you present that to the class. You give an overview of the organization, the work that you did, and how other people within the cohort can get involved with whatever organization you're working with. And then lastly, graduation. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Everybody that meets the requirements from within the group that complete the curriculum are recognized at the annual graduation luncheon. That one this year is happening next month, and it's going to be held at the City Center in West Little Rock. So we just do that at various locations as well. Next year, it will be held at that same location, though. All right. So I just wanted to throw some pictures on here of some of the things that I talked about. So the one in the top left up here, that is from a Black Hawk helicopter that the class last year got to experience. So that's obviously very cool. The middle one here is the Central High School tour. That was from a few years ago. So you get to hear from one of the tour guides from the National Park Service that that's their whole job is to tell that story, and so they're obviously very good at it, and it's very instructional and informational, and it's one of my favorite tours of the year. In the top right, you have a picture from an economic development session. We did a tour of Dassault Falcon Jet out at the airport. So that's obviously very cool. You get to, tour the inside of a fuselage of a private jet. So that's neat. Bottom right, that's another picture from a military session. That's one of the helicopters, a model of one that you get to ride in, that kind of thing. The one in the middle, bottom is from the ropes course session, the leadership challenge that I mentioned. This is a gentleman zip lining, exiting the ropes course. And then the one on the bottom left, that is a picture from the healthcare session. You get to go through their training simulation. You get to view these dummies that are very interactive that talk to you and give you their symptoms and you treat them, and it's just a very cool experience. I just want to throw these up here to make it a little more real so you can see and kind of picture how these things work. All right, so an overview of the application process, the criteria for selection, so a strong commitment to serve Pulaski County community, ability to dedicate time to attend sessions and complete projects, a demonstrated likelihood to remain living or working in Pulaski County, involvement or in community service or civic service, and interest in becoming involved, demonstrated leadership and strong interpersonal skills, proactive approach to community issues, ability to contribute to class discussions and projects, employer and sponsor support for time and financial commitment. So that's a requirement that you fill out as you're doing the application. Your employer has to sign off that they're giving you the time. If they're not supporting you financially, you have to demonstrate that you can cover the bill, but the employer, regardless, has to sign off that they're supporting you for the time off and participation in the program. You can't participate in other leadership programs at the same time. We're happy to take people that have done Leadership Arkansas or leadership whatever, but you just can't do them at the same time just for a time commitment standpoint. And then lastly, you must have lived or worked in Pulaski County for at least 1 year prior to the announcement of a cohort, which I said happens in September of each year. So if you're looking at applying for this next cohort by September of this year, you have to have either lived or worked in Pulaski County for at least a year to be considered for the program for this next year. So a process overview for the application. The application process is open right now. It opened April 1st and it will close May 31st. So the application process, you fill out the online application, which takes about 30 to 45 minutes. And this is a big tip that I always give people is take your time and give thoughtful responses to the questions. This is one of the primary things that the selection committee looks at and uses in their deliberations, your responses to these questions. So take your time, be thoughtful, be thorough, and do a good job there. And that'll set you up for success moving into the interview and selection process. Provide 2 letters of reference. So you have to have one professional, which could be employer. If you're, a business owner, it could be a business partner, it could be a client that you've worked with for a long time, just someone that can speak to your professional capacity, your professional involvement, those kind of things. And then you have to have one personal letter of reference. This can be, a friend, a coworker. It could be a neighbor, someone from church, that kind of thing. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions about those. But that's just those are the basic requirements for the application. So everyone that completes the application in all its steps, they get interviewed each July. So each applicant is interviewed at the chamber building. Like I said, each July, it's usually the second 2 weeks or the middle 2 weeks of July. Each applicant is interviewed at the chamber for consistency purposes by three different program alumni. So each session, you're going to have three alumni of the program that are going to be in there asking you questions, having you elaborate on your responses to the application questions, trying to get to know you a little better, all that kind of stuff. And then they all three of them submit notes to the selection committee on their observances and then how you answered the questions, all of those kind of things. And then so that the interview and the application are the two things that the selection committee utilizes when they're reviewing the applications and making their deliberations about who is going to be selected for a cohort. So each early in September, all applicants are notified whether or not they got in. The selection committee is an anonymous group that selects approximately 50 people from amongst the applicant pool each year. They try to be as diverse as possible in industries, and try to form a cohesive cohort, and just try to have the most balanced cohort that they can each year. So here's a timeline of the application process. I've talked a little bit about this, but just to reiterate, application portal opened April 1st, closes May 31st. The second 2 weeks of July, middle 2 weeks, interview process. And then in August, the selection committee deliberates. In September, early September, selections are finalized and communicated to the applicants. And then at the end of September, the class is announced. All right, time commitment. I've talked a little bit about this. 10 full day sessions, 2 day out of town retreat. Just to reiterate, those are the two main rules of the program. Um, Sessions are held 1 to 2 Thursdays a month. So it's a 9 month program. There's 10 sessions and a retreat. So there's going to be a couple months that have two sessions, but we try to keep it 1 to 2, unless there's a reschedule due to weather or something like that. The full schedule is provided prior to acceptance, so each applicant has to sign off on the dates. Those are already communicated on the website. Talked about the retreat already. And then some sessions are led by class members. Like I said, there's two class projects where you have to do a presentation to the entire cohort. So that's the community session and the quality of life session. And that requires additional planning time, additional meeting time with your subgroup, and additional work beyond just the class time. I've talked about the additional projects that may be assigned. Attendance is expected at all sessions, but we do understand that, life does throw things at people. So we allow people to miss up to 16 hours, which is two full sessions. But anything beyond that, it doesn't matter what happens, that results in removal from the program with no refund. So just keep that in mind as you move forward through the process. The cost for this year for tuition is $3,000. So this is inclusive of all program activities, meals, and bus travel. So all the things that make this program work cost money. And so unfortunately, we do have to charge a tuition fee, but it is $3,000, and there are a limited number of scholarships, full and partial, that are available each year. Scholarships are considered on a case-by-case basis and are typically reserved for those who work for organizations like nonprofits and governmental institutions that do not have resources to fund professional development activities for their employees. Here's the calendar of sessions for the year. Like I said, this is on the website, but I did want to highlight just to give you an overview and a look, a visual at how these sessions play out as far as timing. Like I said, a class announcement in September, leadership challenge in October, retreat November, history session November, community session December, economic development and government politics in January, education February, military March, healthcare April, criminal justice April, quality of life May, graduation May. So like I said, we try to keep it to 1 day a month, but there are some months where there are two just to fit it all in. All right. So what happens after the program is over? So we get this question a lot. So we have an alumni association that handles the engagement beyond the program after graduation. So participants or graduates of the program are eligible for membership in the alumni association. Those requests go out each January. It's a $50 fee to be a part of the alumni association, but that entitles you to different events and different discounts on tickets, that kind of thing. So it is well worth it. $50 is pretty nominal comparatively to the benefit that you get from being in the alumni association. So I'm not going to go through too much in depth on the purpose of the Alumni Association, but it's primarily just to help continuing to develop graduates of the program, whether it's in professional development capacities, offering programming, things of that nature, or just convening them to network with one another, to stay in contact, and then also just get them further involved in the community, whether that's encouraging people to run for office or just get involved in city commissions or nonprofit boards, things of that nature. So we do have three committees on the Alumni Association that members of the Alumni Association can take part in. So we have a community impact committee that focuses on identifying community issues and driving change. So it's a great way for alumni to give back to the community, to continue and implement the things that they learned in the program by, identifying these issues and helping be a part of partnering with, whether it's partnering with existing organizations and on a project that is, ongoing and doing our part to help, or, identifying our own project to take on to make our community a better place to live and to work. We have an events and service committee. They oversee the planning and execution of annual alumni events. I'll talk a little bit about the Judy Lowe Award here in a minute, the alumni holiday party, and then they oversee, any other events that we do on a periodic basis as well. And then they are constantly looking for new ways to convene alumni, whether it's through nonprofit service or, pickleball events or educational events or, anything of that nature. And then lastly, we have an alumni engagement committee that is responsible for engaging with our alumni that are both in and not in the alumni association. So trying to, if they're not in the alumni association, try to re-engage them in the community service work that we're doing, engage them in the events so they can take part in connecting with other graduates of the program, all of those things. And then they oversee the website and database and all of that good stuff. And then they do periodic surveys to inform the activities and shape the priorities of those other committees that I talked about. So different events for the Alumni Association. We do some on an annual basis where you convene with other alumni. We do the Judy Love Alumni Achievement Award Ceremony. It's an award given annually to an outstanding LGLR alumnus who demonstrates outstanding achievement and leadership through whether it's their career, volunteerism, board service, other community involvement, things of that nature. And then the class graduation, the class announcement, those are all very thoroughly attended by alumni of the program. We always have a huge turnout of alumni that come support the new class as they're announced, and then that class as they graduate. And then we have an alumni association holiday party each year, which is just a relaxed networking event where our alumni gather together and mix and mingle. And then we do, like I said, other periodic events, whether it's different programming, and the nonprofit board and city commission openings are communicated to the alumni, days of service, ongoing professional development programming, all those things. So just wanted to highlight that it's not just all over once you graduate. We do engage our alumni pretty thoroughly moving after the program ends. So I wanted to turn it over to Billy Rodenbeck for a minute. So I almost had to shrink down the font size to get all of Billy's titles in here. He's the owner of Pulaski County Title. He's the current vice chair, incoming chair of the LGLR Alumni Advisory Board that I mentioned earlier. He was a class chair of Class XL, which is Class 40. That was last year. And then he was the co-chair of the year before that, Class 39. And he was a member of Class 34. With that being said, as long as I turned his mic on, I will let Billy give his personal testimony as to what he got out of the program and why you should apply for it.
Great. Thanks, Kellen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, if you could be a little louder, I think that would be helpful.
All right, I can do that. So 8 years ago, I had a close friend and that participated in class 33, and upon her graduation, basically insisted that I participate, make my application for what would then be class 34. And my first thought was, now what is this? Now, keep in mind, I was a chamber member because I thought, okay, well, that's the thing to do, but didn't really have a lot of depth with the chamber. And I said, now what is this? And what's the time commitment? And I grew up in Little Rock, so I thought, well, I know quite a bit about Little Rock. I own a title company and had for many years and felt pretty plugged in at the time. And as I dug into it, and so I agreed to make the application based on her insistence. But as I dug into it, I realized, hey, this is really cool. I went through the application process. I was aware that, sometimes you have to take a couple shots at it before you get in. Not everybody, there's not always enough spots for the applicants. And I was fortunate enough to get a class slot in class 34. When I showed up for the announcement, I realized how many people were there to see the new class and how important it was to them. And these were alumni and important people that I looked up to. And I thought, okay, I'm going to dive into this. And I think, like anything else, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And that's definitely true with this class. So I would encourage you not only to make your application, but if you're fortunate enough to obtain a spot, to make the most out of it, not only for yourself, but also for those that have gone through the class before, and those that maybe aren't fortunate enough to get a slot in this class and have to reapply. But mostly do it for yourself. It was a game changer for me. I was surprised at how much I learned about the community that I grew up in that I didn't know, in particular from an economic development perspective. I learned a tremendous amount about the chamber. No longer was it something that I felt was an obligated membership. It became something that I realized that we as members are the chamber, and it caused me to greatly increase my interaction with the chamber and support of the chamber, personally and professionally. I say it's like having a dozen field trips, adult field trips, and it is just that. Each one's a little different. You learn something new. Each one of them, I took away something that was valuable, and I couldn't wait to the next session. When it ended, I have to tell you, I was really, uh, I guess, sad that it was over. And it caused me to dive deep into the Alumni Association, which I'm proud to be a member of, and the board. And also, I was fortunate enough to co-chair and chair class 39 and 40, respectively. It's just an amazing thing. And I'm so fortunate that, one, I was pushed to do it. And number two, that I recognized early on that it was the potential to be something that I considered a monument in my life. And I know that I'll always reflect back on my time and experience with Leadership Greater Little Rock, with a real appreciation for. Um, I think that you will find if you dive into it and you participate into it fully, you will agree with me and have that same experience. I get feedback from not only those that came after me, but before me, that was exactly the experience that they had. So, yeah, happy to provide that testimony. It comes from the heart. One of the coolest things I've ever done.
Thank you, Billy. Appreciate you as always. So I am going to throw my contact info up here. Feel free to reach out to me via phone or email with any specific questions that you have about the program or the application process or anything of that nature. I'm happy to respond to those and look forward to seeing you all apply for this upcoming cohort. I will close with highlighting some upcoming events that we've got going on at the Chamber. Here next week, we have an equip session that talks about developing, cultivating appreciation in your workplace culture. So that one will be very neat. That's 11:30 to 1 here at the Chamber. Final Friday, we do this on the last Friday of every month. A different chamber member hosts these events. So the next one will be at ACTA MSP, which is out at Data Max in toward West Little Rock, Midtown area. Our Small Business Summit is coming up on May 6th. So if you own a small business or work in one, that's a great event where you're going to hear different panel discussions and presentations, particular to operational issues in running a small business and how to mitigate those. And then we also have that the Small Business Summit culminates in the Small Business Impact Award Ceremony, where we recognize 12 different small businesses and nonprofits from around the region and the great work that they're doing. So that one is a great event as well. And then lastly, we have our Morning Grind quarterly small business coffee event that's at 7:30 at the Chamber on May 12th. In the morning, and then Chamber 101, which is immediately following. What does the Chamber do? How do I get involved? That's what that addresses. So oh yeah, and then here, Serve the Rock is our nonprofit focused event that the Chamber puts on each year. So if you and your organization are interested in doing a service project or anything of that nature, just reach out to us, sign up on our website for the Serve the Rock event. And I'm going to put my contact info back up here. Thank you all for attending. I've enjoyed presenting to you, and thanks for being a great audience. And I will close the session now and look forward to seeing you all apply. Please reach out with any questions.